Guys, welcome back. It's the Built by Vitality podcast. I'm sitting next to Philip Lewis.
Yep.
And my name is Steve Pinkerton, and we're going to get into napping versus meditation. Which do we think is better? What do the scientists say? What does the general public think? And we'll cover most of it's just conjecture. What I think is, what's worked for me.
I'm a big meditation guy.
And what's worked for Philip. Before we get into that, though, let's spend 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes. And I've been asked by quite a few different people, different members of the gym that look at my background and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, okay, well, it's interesting.
Okay.
They want to know what I think about the hammer thrower that took the old turn around, face away from the flag stance on the podium.
Podcast friendly version?
Of course.
I think they're an idiot.
Okay. I think that you're being insensitive.
Okay.
Here's what I think. I think that we are very lucky that we live in a country that allows people to disgrace the colors of that country.
Yeah.
We're lucky.
You do that in another country, they chop an arm off, or they do something crazy. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah,
You're not allowed.
There is execution for people that don't toe the line. That's not like, oh, it's in the movies. No, that's a real thing.
That's a real.
I think that the rub for me is, hey, if you feel that strongly that that's the platform you want to take to make some statement, okay, hey, you have that right. But you know what? I don't think you should be trying to compete in a sport that you're representing this country that you hate so much, that you're so ashamed of.
If it's that bad, then how did you? I mean, you got where you're at because of this country.
Yeah,
and your hard work. But in general, like, I don't understand.
I think it's hard for people to see it because it's so blatantly disrespectful to so many people, especially those first responders, all the military men and women that sacrifice so much to make this country the most amazing country in the world, and people, rightly so, they got very upset. But hey, that's why we are so adamant that we have to protect these liberties and these freedoms so that people can have that opinion. It would be hypocritical for us to sit here and say, I can't believe she's doing that. Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Okay? Just because we don't agree with it doesn't mean she can't do it. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in this world that think that because they don't agree with something, it shouldn't be done. It doesn't work that way. It goes both ways. There's going to be some things that I do that people don't agree with. There's going to be some things other people do that I don't agree with, and that's just the way it goes. So I'm kind of surprised. I feel like you're, being a little insensitive.
Wow.
Usually I'm the usually you're the voice of reason. And now look at me.
What did I say they were?
Idiots. You said the word idiots.
I think her move was an idiot, or the move was an idiot. Idiotic.
I think maybe I'm being a little bit more of a nurturer in this case.
I'm more nature in this.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
No, obviously Philip and I agree that this is, we think it's the wrong place to do it.
Here you go.
Here we go.
Let's bring Vitality into it.
Let's do it.
Steve, you gave me this opportunity here at Vitality, even though I begged you for like 32 years. But I got a job here. You like, hey man, let's do this media company thing. That's awesome. Greatest opportunity ever.
Yep.
I'd be an idiot if I thought otherwise. Love this place. The people in it, everything. But what if you seen me out on the corner, a couple blocks away or something in my free time, and I just was bashing Vitality? Or people come up to me and say, hey man, I'm new to the area. I live in the neighborhood right down the street from, I think there's a gym up there. I'm like, man, you don't want to go to that gym. I would recommend this one. Why? When I got the greatest opportunity ever here. That's how I feel towards what happened with that.
Yeah, I can see it.
I just see like, that whatever the thing you're turning your back on gave you that opportunity, and you're turning your back on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think just, what it stands for, you've got to be a little delirious if we're trying to make the stretch that the American flag, the Stars and Stripes, the most recognizable flag in the world, if now that's become some type of negative connotation to it. I mean, you got to be outside of your mind a little bit, and that's okay. Hey, to each his own.
Yeah.
But you're not right if all of a sudden you're making the leap that, the American flag means anything but the ability to do exactly what you are doing.
Yeah.
That's what that flag stands for. So that's my thought on it. I've certainly over the years, I guess, got a little more patient with. I've been exposed to a little bit more people's interesting views, and it doesn't bother me as much. Maybe, if you would have caught me 12 years ago with this, man, I'd probably be on my way to the stadium right now to have a little chit chat. But it's just, now I've matured a lot. Still have a ways to go. But that's my thought. That's my thought. So for those that were curious, here you go.
Yep.
That's pretty PG,
I'm nature,
right?
he's nurture on that one.
Who would have thought? Okay, so napping versus meditation. Before we get started, do you do either of these consistently? Consistently.
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
So let's talk about what those two are. Obviously, napping is simple. It's defined as to sleep lightly or briefly, especially during the day, or excuse me, especially during the afternoon. Meditation is a little bit different. The one meditation technique that is, I think, most well known, most widespread, that's talked about in most of the studies that I looked at, was transcendental meditation, and it's TM is how I refer to that. It's defined as an effortless self-improvement technique that allows your mind to settle inward beyond thinking to experience pure awareness, the most silent and peaceful level of the mind, your innermost self.
I've heard that put when people do meditate, they're saying they're trying to separate their mind from their body.
Yeah.
Right? Is kind of what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just trying to
And so what it says is, for simplicity, effortlessness, and highly scientifically validated benefits, it enhances brain function, increases intelligence, focus, and creativity. All this while providing exceptionally deep rest to the body that reduces stress and fatigue. The TM technique is the only meditation research that shows increases with neurological functioning, IQ, academic performance, grade point average, creativity, concept learning, serenity, emotional stability, self-esteem, moral reasoning, and consciousness orientation. I read all that and I immediately thought, gosh, maybe Philip should start doing TM like 3 times a day.
I know.
Crazy.
If it does all that, I'm down for it.
And I read that, and look, I'll, spoiler alert, I don't think negatively of meditation by any stretch. To me, napping has just been, that's going to be the approach that I take to it, and that's going to be how I explain what's worked for me and why I think it's worked for me.
And me looking on the outside at one of the two, I would pick napping. I just think that it would be more beneficial. It seems like the meditation you just went over is like, hey, I need you to do everything your body does when it's sleeping, but not go to sleep or something. It's like taking the sleep part out, but you get all the other I don't know.
I think there's a few reasons. We'll get into this, but I think that the bottom line, when I get towards the end of this and I try and wrap up why I think people favor meditation, I think it's much simpler than what most people think. I look at that definition where it talked about all the 17 different things that it fixed. I have a really hard time making the connection when you talk about grade point average. So, I'll talk about some studies, and I'm sure there's some studies, but that's a really tough one to try and to narrow down and say, okay, I had a big enough control group to make the leap to say that this increased your grade point average? I mean, are you not letting people study? How do you isolate that? So when I start seeing things like that, I immediately get a little bit kind of drawn away from this, saying, wait a second.
Yeah. If you had a
some
group,
red flags.
Well, if you had a group, say the only difference in the people in that group is you took half that group and had them do that meditation and the other half wasn't allowed to, maybe it did work. But I would say, and my thinking would be, if you took half that group and they did meditation, the other half got a nap or two during the day. I just think that would be better. I don't know.
And there was, before I get into studies, I will talk about how I was exposed and got into napping, and even saying that, I think the biggest battle that I had in 2012 when I first started this was the association with napping. Like, it just sounds like a lazy response or a lazy solution.
You yelled at me one day when I said I was taking a nap.
I think that was because you were going to sleep for like 3.5 hours.
You didn't know that, but I probably would have.
For me, naps became a daily part of my routine when I first opened the gym, and 2 years later, I was just running on E. I did a lot in those early years, and then our first daughter was born, so that took Jess out of the business, and it was really, me for a little while opening and closing, and we were working these long hours, and I needed some break in the afternoon. So 2012, I had a chiropractor that was located with us, a medical business that was located with us, and when he left, there was a massage table that was left, and it was in this back room. And I remember I went in there one day, and I was about 2 feet too long for it. I was about as wide as the table was, so it was really uncomfortable. But I was so tired, I laid down and I fell asleep. And I woke up, and I was like, wow, I feel pretty good. So I started doing it more and working it in my routine. It didn't stick until I started seeing the gains in my training sessions when I was competing. The afternoons, I would do a morning session and the afternoon session. And man, I just had so much energy in the afternoon, and maybe it had nothing to do with the nap, but for me, I felt great, and I felt like I was rested. And I started adding these naps, and 27 minutes it was this weird phenomenon where I would lay down and I would immediately fall asleep. I could fall asleep very quickly. That was a learned thing. It took some time. It took practice to try and fall asleep. Sometimes I would read for 5 or 10 minutes to try and let my brain cool off and slow down. And I would get better and better at it. And I would be able to set my alarm on my watch for 27 minutes. And I cannot tell you how many times I would wake up and I'd hit the little the Indiglo button on my Timex Ironman watch, and it would say 26:52, like 8 seconds from my alarm going off. And I'm telling you, as crazy as it sounds, 90% of the time, I would wake up within 20 seconds of my alarm. It would just, I would wake up and boom. And so that's what I did. And I legitimately built this into my schedule, and it was a part of my routine. Laura knew about it. Jess knew about it. People knew that, hey, at 11:30, Steve's going to lay down for a half hour. You're not going to see him, and then he'll wake up. And that's just what I did. And this has been going on for almost 10 years.
So you do it every day at 11:30?
Every day. Sometimes I'm a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later, but I try to do it before.
I might start trying it with you. 11:30, don't contact me. I'm going to start trying it.
I can think we were laughing the other day. People know how important it is to me because I can count in, 12 years, I can count on 2 fingers how many times someone's woke me up from a nap,
Poor Agnew.
Yeah.
He said it was the worst day of his life. He was scared to death.
But I didn't get mad, did I?
No.
No.
You said it was valid.
Yep. Now, if it would have been,
hey man, what you doing?
yeah,
Just want to say hey. Yeah.
But that's just, for me, that was what was important. And so that's my background is I've been doing this for 10 years. It's not something that I've been doing for a month and I think I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for 10 years. And anybody that knows me knows I'm fairly structured. There's not a lot of wasted time in my day. Like, do I train kind of a lot, or am I down there messing around? Sometimes I'm training. I do. Like, I go down. It's not like I'm, I don't mind sitting around down there.
Yeah, like in between.
Yeah, I don't mind. But there's not a lot of time where I'm, messing around.
Scrolling through Instagram for an hour, just wasting.
So for me to give up 30 minutes of my day, it has to mean that I believe in that, wholeheartedly. So let's look at the science bit with this. The science starts with a 1973 research that was published in the Clinical Neurophysiology that showed TM was successful in unfolding mental capacity. Now, again, right from the start, it's just the way they say it. Unfolding.
I kind of like their definitions better than your nap definition. I might try that.
But this is, I want to get to that. A large randomized controlled trial demonstrated at the time, in contrast to napping, during TM, subjects showed distinctive EEG changes, including slow, high amplitude alpha activity extending to anterior channels, theta activity. This indicates that the TM technique is superior to napping because it increased creativity, practical intelligence, reduces anxiety, and more. The one thing I'll say about that is increased creativity. That's a tough one for me to swallow there. I am not a creative person. And if you want to try and measure that creativity, what do you want me to do? Draw you a picture and then do some TM, and then all of a sudden I'm going to become this artist that has this? No. Yeah. You either are artistic or you are not. Me and you, we're not.
Okay. That's true. Some of us just had to learn it.
In 2001, the Journal of Intelligence published data on 3 studies of 362 high school students at 3 different schools in Taiwan, which tested the hypothesis that regular practice of TM for 15 to 20 minutes twice a day for 6 to 12 months would improve cognitive ability. The same 7 variables were used in all studies. They tested for creative thinking, drawing production, constructive thinking, group figured test, state and trait anxiety, inspection time, and culture fair intelligence. The TM practice produced significant effects on all variables compared to non-treatment controls, whereas napping for equivalent periods of time as TM had no effect. I love that study. I love it because for a school to invest that type of time, energy, and resources to try and hack what can help these students, I think is incredible. Whatever I believe with whether napping or TM is beneficial, the fact that Taiwan saw the opening and the writing on the wall to say, you know what, we're going to invest into these students and see what happens, I think is amazing. I wish that in the States we could do this, where we could start to give these kids a fighting chance to say, okay, how do we combat some of this ADHD stuff? Obviously sleep is a big driver in this. So whether that was a legit study, I don't really care. I think it's awesome. And if they came out and they said that TM produced the most significant effects, cool. I think it's a great study.
How do they know for the 15 or 20 minutes when they're supposed to be doing TM, they wouldn't really sleep?
Yeah. Well,
I'd be like, hey, Steve, I'm going to do my TM real quick. I'd be out. I'd be snoring in 15, 20 minutes like you.
Compliance is a tough one. You're taking people's word for it, and that's what's kind of interesting with these studies. They said that TM is different than a nap. TM is restful, but simultaneously produces a habit of inner alertness. Nap is just rest while the mind remains dull without awareness. Now, again, that definition is just,
terrible.
Nap is just rest while the mind remains dull without awareness. Well, okay. However, you're trying to get in this REM sleep. You're trying to get this deep sleep. There's different stages of sleep where your mind is not just dull, and that. It's like that part when in The Wedding Crasher, when Vince Vaughn comes down from breakfast and his buddy's like, "You're not going to eat with me?" He's like, "Nope, I'm going to sit over here. I'm going to turn off the engines, get back to neutral.
He's doing TM.
Yeah, and I just feel like that's the point of this whole sleeping, is to shut the engines down, man. Of course, I want my mind not to be working. Our minds
can't sleep.
No. TM is increased blood flow in the front brain, known as the CEO of the brain. NAP is decreased blood flow in the front of the brain. TM is alpha activity, which is inner wakefulness. NAP is theta activity, which is drowsiness and delta sleep. So there's some studies that you're going to find that will tell you that TM is better than a nap. I think just some of the wording of these studies are done by people that have such a connection or such a belief in TM that they're discounting. They just don't nap, and so they're not a believer of it, not because of science, but just because they don't like it.
How do you know you're in TM? Or in that? How do you know when you get in that state? Did it say how do you know?
I'll tell you that Jess has done meditation for years. She gets up first thing in the morning, and it's the first thing she does. I think it's 15 to 20 minutes, and she's religious about it. I joked with her a couple of months ago. She was telling me all the benefits of this the TM and how it's supposed to help with stress and your relationships with your kids, because you don't get frustrated as much. So she was getting frustrated with Reagan one day, and I was like, gosh, for as much as you meditate, you'd think you'd be able to crush it. And yeah, so
how'd that work out?
Not good. Don't do that. But napping studies, which is interesting to me, because it's like we are completely opposites. I am all in on napping, and she's all in on meditation.
Has she ever told you what she does during meditation? Does she say she just shuts off and
she concentrates
silent
on one thing, and that one thing is nothingness. She's focused on nothing. She's trying to. Gosh, it's crazy.
That's gotta be really. I guess that requires a lot of mind control.
Very
to be
disciplined. Yep.
Because if I'm up, I'm thinking about something.
And the thing is I've tried to get her to do more naps, and she's tried to get me to do more meditation, and we're both kind of stubborn and set in our ways. So napping studies. Before I say that, Ben & Jerry's, Uber, Google, and Zappos have all installed nap rooms in their headquarters. And they're pretty big businesses.
Oh, yeah.
So if they're looking at this saying, hey, I believe this is important, then I think we're onto something. So just some quick studies. Jerome Siegel, they're all these guys and gals are PhDs, super smart people. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of the background. This is just skimming through. He says even in well-rested people, naps can improve performance in such areas as reaction time, logical reasoning, and symbol recognition. In 2009, he wrote this review in the Journal of Sleep Research. And they can also be good for one's mood. And we'll come back to the mood here in a second. University of Michigan doctoral student Jennifer Goldschmidt found that after waking from a 30-minute midday nap, people were less impulsive and had greater tolerance for frustration than people who opted to skip the nap. Frustration tolerance is one facet of emotion regulation. I suspect sleeping gives us more distance from that emotional event. It's not just about the passing of time. And what I took from that is simple. Think about you are on the verge of losing your temper, and all we're trying to do is kick that can down the road. Mm-hmm. And the more sleep quality we have, the more we can focus on that aspect of sleep, then the further we become from that emotional outrage, the more it's going to take to get us to that point, versus if we are constantly in this underslept, fatigued state, we're right there. It's on the,
most people are sleep deprived in general.
Yes.
In the population. So they're already walking around on edge. And then if they take a nap, it's definitely going to help them, because they're already sleep deprived, walking around on edge. So it's going to help them. Just imagine somebody that gets really good sleep, like you, and you can get a nap in there. It's got to be way better for you.
I'll tell you from the experience of the Marine Corps, and where sleep deprivation was one of, as we talked about in a previous podcast, a huge training tool for us. And that created so much stress on our systems that people don't understand. most people rarely are put in that type of environment to where not only are you sleep deprived, but you are stressed. Your stress is maximized on purpose to put you in this state. And I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've experienced it myself. I've made those mistakes. And you cannot think clearly when you are in a fatigued, underslept state.
You can get a DUI. So some people get really tired, they're groggy, their reaction time's out there, whatever, and they're swerving or they're tired. Nothing's wrong. They're not under the influence of anything. But a while back, they changed it from DWI, I guess what it was, driving while intoxicated, and now it's driving under the influence of something. So if you're sleep deprived, you can actually get a DUI if a cop pulls you over because you're driving recklessly from being sleep deprived.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. If these studies are showing what just an hour or 2 hours a night of sleep deprivation will do, I don't want those people behind the car. I mean, look, my kid, my 13-year-old is going to be driving someday, and I probably would err on the side that she's not going to be the greatest driver in the world. She's going to be preoccupied with TikTok and preoccupied with everything else that I'm going to have to delete from her phone or take her phone away from her while she gets in the car at any point in time, because these kids are so dependent on it. But the last thing I want is her out driving with everybody else they might as well be drinking and driving because they're so sleep deprived. The other thing that was interesting was that there was a PhD at Cal, Sarah Mednick, and she talked about the comparison. I didn't make this connection right away when I was getting my notes ready for this, but she talked about how an afternoon nap was about equal to a dose of caffeine for improving perceptual learning. And I thought about that, and I'm like, man, we live in such a world of caffeinated everything, energy drinks, coffee, whatever. No wonder people can't meditate or take a nap, because they're constantly popping these energy drinks and pills or whatever else, caffeine pills, 5-hour energy, 4-hour energy, whatever it is. And their heart is beating 1,000 beats per minute because they're caffeinated. Yeah. It's like you before.
That's good.
We work.
Yeah, I don't think it's the caffeine for that.
We always look at Philip's Whoop data before we start a workout. Before we even start a workout, he's at like 130.
Let's look at it now. I guarantee you mine's higher.
Oh, man. I don't think we can do it because we're not in a... How are you doing that?
Click on the little 3 down there.
Yep.
Go to strap settings. And it just kind of shows
60.
you what it's at.
Yeah.
Oh, we're pretty good right now.
Not bad. So, she talked about how that connection, people are using caffeine in place of these recovery tools. And that, I think, is a slippery slope. Will taking naps decrease the likelihood of caffeine addictions? I would probably say yes. I mean, again, it's a generalization, but I don't do caffeine. I don't do coffee. Not because I think it's bad for me. I just never got into it. And I didn't want to have to depend on something to keep me awake. But it just so happens that I'm a big believer in naps. Maybe there's a small connection, a small correlation there. But I won't make that leap. With anything, you're going to find any comparison you want to make, napping versus meditation, anything you want to make, you're going to find mountains of research supporting those two topics. And what it turns into is confirmation bias. I would look for a few supporting studies that said, hey, napping's better, and boom, that's what I'm going to believe. Yeah. But the reality is it's not so simple. It's like the debate about exercise programs. Which is better? CrossFit, yoga, jiu-jitsu, running, swimming. What's better? Well, what's better is whichever one you stick with.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. Do something and stick with it. Do I think that running can be dangerous? Or I shouldn't say dangerous, but do I think you have a higher probability of injuring yourself by training long distance running? Yes, but if it's a long distance running or nothing, I I would long distance run.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
I think when we go back to this, would you say caffeine and naps and
Yeah.
stuff? You think about it too. If I have a lot of stuff to do, and you're already trying to cram all this stuff in a day or whatever it is, it's probably easier for me to pop an energy drink and try to keep on going than, all right, let me take 30 minutes out of my day, try to lay down, try to fall asleep. It's probably like a quick fix. That's why there's fast food everywhere. It's just quicker to pull in, grab something, keep going.
Yep.
People know that.
Yeah, I think it is easier, and I think that it will keep people from having to work on their time management skills.
Mm-hmm.
They can just, hey, I don't have time to take a nap. Well, you do have time. You just have to be you have to give something up.
Yeah.
Same thing with fitness. I don't have time to work out. You do have time. You have to get up earlier, whatever it might be.
I thought about giving up working out to take naps.
That's interesting. Yeah, exactly. So why do I think naps get a bad rap when compared to meditation? I think there's a couple things. Which is easier? I would say meditation. I'm not saying the process of meditating, but I'm saying logistically, naps require a little more prep. I have to have a massage table or a bed or
Pillow, a dark room, something cold. I got to be comfortable.
Now, can you go to your car and sleep in your car? Sure, you can, but it's not very sustainable to do that every day, whatever, because it's going to be cold at some point. What are you going to do? Leave your car running? You can't do it. So I think from simplicity, you can meditate anywhere. You sit in a dark room. Like Jess will scare the crap out of me some of these times. She'll be sitting in a completely dark room, and I'll walk next to her and not even, like, it's dark. And there's just some body, some person. I mean, it just catches me off guard.
Oh,
She's lucky she doesn't get, karate chopped or something. But napping, it just takes a little more planning. Now it took me 10 years, but you've seen my bed. I bought a $80 mattress from Amazon, and
Still too short for you?
it's still too short. It doesn't matter, but I'm telling you, it's like the Taj Mahal compared to that massage table.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's
that
gotta
massage
be.
table worked. It just worked for
When you're tired, you fall asleep
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah.
perception. This is the biggest piece of it, in my opinion. The biggest takeaway from me is there's a stigma about naps that will never work in our favor if we're a napper. Meditation sounds sexy. And there's a guy, he wrote the 2001 study. His name was Jerome Siegel. He wrote this big, long study in favor of meditation, all the benefits. And at the end, he concluded, and it was a really kind of a funny way to conclude it. He said, but the most important reason is this. When I tell my wife that I need an afternoon nap, I get a nod of disapproval. But when I tell her I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes, I get an instant approval. In her mind, a nap is a sign of laziness, while meditation is a sign of the divine dedication. Meditation improves my sleep at night, whereas a nap certainly longer than 20 minutes or later or longer than 3 p.m. can interfere with my nighttime sleep. So right there is exactly what I'm saying. Napping, it has a negative connotation to it.
I've said it to people before, like, hey, what'd you do the other day? I'm like, well, I did this, did that. I took a nap. They're like, you took a nap?
Yep.
Like, it's weird. Like, oh,
Yep.
you took a nap. What's wrong with you? Are you 80?
Yep.
I'm like, no, I'm tired, and I just wanted to get a little refresher that afternoon.
I've been taking a nap for, like I said, 10 years, every day, or every day that I can. And my brothers, my sister, my dad, they all bust my chops about it.
Don't worry, I'm in it with you now. 11:30 to 12, me and you.
And, I try to tell my brother, my older brother, he's a really bad sleeper. Like when you talk about sleep hygiene, man, terrible. We're talking 4 to 5 hours a night, probably averages. And I mean, he's a cop. I mean, he's great at what he does.
His mind's probably always racing.
But he just can't. I don't think he can shut it down, shut it off. And I said, man, you just need to close your door at the office and just lay down for 20 minutes. And he would never do that in a million years. But I think that's just because the perception is, man, he must have stayed out too late the night before.
Yeah.
No. And not to get completely off topic here, but, the one thing about this wearable, the people that are using these wearables, I don't care how inaccurate or accurate they are, it opens your eyes up to how much sleep you actually get. So when I talk to my brother and say, hey, how much, I'm getting 6 hours. You and I look at that and say, okay, he was in bed for 6 hours.
You got 3.5 or 4.
Yeah.
Or something.
Because I'm at least, I've got about an hour and 15 minutes of wake time is what my wearable says in the morning. So if I'm in bed for 8.5 hours, I really only slept for about 7 hours and 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. You'll be surprised. Oh, we'll go to bed at 10. I got to get up at 6. That's about 8 hours. But if you really look at it and you start wearing something that you can see it, you're like, man, I laid down at 10, got up at 6. It says I got 5 hours and 42 minutes of sleep. Like, what?
Yep.
You woke up, you toss and turn, you went to the bathroom, you woke up in the middle of the night, maybe looked at your phone, and it adds up.
So that's, that we'll come back to that, but that's another part of this process is when you're already in a fatigue state, I think I would lean to trying to catch up a little bit with an actual nap versus, because look, here's the bottom line. I don't know. No one, I'm sure somebody's smart out there. There are people that know the difference, but I don't think anyone knows which is truly better because we're so individualized in what we need and what our actions are. But I think that the majority of people are not getting the sleep they need. Forget about trying to get more creative. Okay, cool. I want Phil to be more creative.
Yeah.
Meditate. I need you to be rested. I need you to be
healthy,
alert. And to me, that's the closest alligator to the boat.
Did they say anything about TM improving, your, not just inside things, but your body, your...
Yeah,
for
it does.
Physical fitness, does it you recover?
There's a lot of research behind it. And compliance is the last thing that I'll talk about here. Compliance is, is following through with it. And, meditation, they talk about, hey, look, just sit there for 20 minutes, be still for a minute, 20, 25 minutes, and, do the best you can to focus on nothing. That's a hard thing to do, but at the end of the day, you finish your 20 minutes, you get the green check mark. You're good.
Yeah.
With napping, what if you try to nap and you don't fall asleep at all? You toss and turn for 26, 27 minutes, and you're like, well, there goes my 27 minutes. Now it discourages you because now there's an actual pass or fail of, did I successfully do this or not? So there's a learning curve, which I think is a little bit bigger in napping because how fast do I fall asleep? When you wake up, do you know the hardest thing to do for people first learning how to take nap? I say it sounds funny, but when they learn how to nap, do you know what the hardest thing is? Being disciplined enough to wake up at the 27-minute mark and to get up. Because let me tell you something, your body... It's gonna want to go back to sleep, and if you push it, that's the next biggest argument I hear is, I felt terrible when I woke up, and then you say, how long did you sleep? 2.5 hours. Okay, that's not a nap. Okay, that's not a nap.
That's a bad night of sleep.
Yeah, that's a Tuesday for Andrew, and I think that's the issue is. You've got to fight that. It's the same thing about pressing snooze. I hate the snooze button. When people tell me they hit the snooze button, just remove the snooze button. Stop it. Because if you don't get up at 27 minutes and you sleep to 45 or 50 to 55 minutes, you're going to be drowsy for about 2 hours. You're going to feel terrible. But if you can fight it and at 27 minutes you pop up, by the time I get my shoes on and I tie my shoes, I'm ready to go. But from the time I'm sitting there tying my shoes, I'm like, God, man, I could sleep for another hour. So that's the compliance part is napping takes discipline. And we all know when things take discipline, there's a lot of lazy people out there.
Man, I have a lot of 30-minute lay downs. until I can fall asleep.
Yeah, but you know, it's like anything though. You pick it up so fast once you commit to it. But you know, I get on Jess sometimes because she'll go into the nap and she'll be telling herself, I'm not going to be able to fall asleep. I probably won't be able to fall asleep. And we all know that our brain leads our bodies. So if we have this negative association with it, like, we're not going to be able to fall asleep, you'll fight it. And I'll relate this to Charlie, you know, my 7-year-old. I almost said 4-year-old. That's how little she.
Man, maybe you need a nap.
Jeez. But my 7-year-old, I think I won the prize. I got her to take naps all the way up until she was about 6.5. I mean, and that's when you have kids, you'll realize napping, when your kids stop napping, it's a life-changing experience because you have an hour less of freedom or an hour and a half less of freedom. But I would just nap with her. We'd nap together. And then I would always tell her before she falls asleep, say, hey, listen, I'm going to wake you up. Don't get mad at me. And she'd be like, I'm not even tired, Daddy. I'm not even going to sleep. And I mean, she's out like this. And then when I would go to wake her up, man, she would fight it. But she's a completely different child when she's napping. And I think that's one of my arguments for napping is you can learn this skill a little bit easier because we've already been pre-exposed to this. As children, we take naps.
What would you say to somebody that might work a 9 to 5 and they get an hour lunch break? What would you tell them? If they wanted to fit in a nap, how would you tell them to do it?
I think that they would nap before they would eat. I think eating and then laying down is a tough combination. I would set my watch for it to start. I'd set it to count down from 30 minutes, and you have 30 minutes to lay down. I try and find the darkest spot I could, as comfortable and cold as I could find it. I have a fan going in my room, and sometimes the barbells drop and it'll kind of mess me up a little bit. But and you just got to practice that and do it for 3 weeks, and tell me that doesn't make you feel better. Tell me it doesn't help your day-to-day interactions. Because the bottom line is this: I'm not going to tell you just because I nap, do I think that napping is the way to go? No, I don't. I'm telling you to pick one of them and do it. And do it for a month, do it for 3 weeks, and just see what happens. No matter what anybody says, let them give you a hard time. I would even go so far as to say, talk to your boss and say, hey, look, I think there's a lot of advantages to meditation or napping. I'd like to try and work this in to see if it makes me a more productive, a better employee. And I tell you what, I bet you your response will be different than what you expect.
Any good boss, if you come to them and said that, they'd be like, oh God,
Yep.
if he's trying to do this to make himself a better employee,
I tried here. We built a nap room. We've got 2 beds in there, and people use it. I mean, I don't think they use it as much as I thought they would, but they still use it. And I why not? I'm asking people to be here at 4:30 in the morning sometimes until 8 p.m. at night. I know that I'm going to get a better experience from my staff if I allow them to be rested. And
I think you're right when it comes to the discipline part. Like, I would probably take a nap every day if I knew I could fall asleep.
Yeah.
But I guess I would just have to start and try to, like you did. You said you couldn't fall asleep right when you first started.
It took me, it's hard to think back that long. You're talking 10 years.
I think if your body gets used to knowing, hey, every day around 11:30, he's laying down. Like, I think you build like a
habit.
A habit.
It's no different than anything else, you know. I just believe that we just do not put enough emphasis on recovery and sleep. And if you want to meditate, then meditate, but do it consistently. And I don't think you can use this as a excuse to not sleep, not get the required sleep at night. I think you need to focus on both of these things. You know, there's a saying that talks about, I can't remember what bodybuilder had said it, but he talked about people that get up in the morning early. These bodybuilders that get up and do cardio early in the morning so they can get ripped up and ready for these shows. And he said, when you wake up and cut your sleep short, you're stepping over quarters to pick up pennies. You know, doing cardio on a fasted in a fasted state.
Sleep deprived.
You know, and it made so much sense to me that resonated with me, because it's like, man, you can do whatever you want. You want to get up early and come to the gym and train? Great. But that means you've got to be disciplined enough to go to bed early. You can't, it does no good to get 4 hours of sleep and then come to the gym.
Crush yourself at the gym, then you work a full day, and you do that all week.
Yep. And so that's why I think this is an important topic. I think meditation and naps, especially, you know, I think back to my dad's generation. I mean, man, one of these days we got to get that big guy on here and have. I would love to get his take on his employees taking naps. He'd lose his mind. He'd lose his mind.
Yeah.
You know, that's just that you didn't do that.
No.
You know, his dad. You know, my grandfather. I bet he would break you in half if you tried that. You know, and I think that's just the generation. That work mentality was so different, and I miss some of that. You know, I wish we had some more of that, because it's very different now. But now all of a sudden, I think we're getting so far to the other end of that. You know, now people just don't put any emphasis on sleep or any of it, and we're starting to see it's gaming. People are staying up, staring at screens, playing Call of Duty or whatever these guys are playing
3 or 4 in the morning
till 3 or 4 in the morning, and they wonder why they can't sleep. You know, they're drinking caffeine all day, they're up all night, and they can't.
I think I have something about that. You keep looking.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, it's worked for me. One way or the other, I think, makes sense. Philip gave me this. I'm just going to read it before I even.
That's fine.
We need to stop glamorizing overworking. The absence of sleep, good diet, exercise, relaxation, and time with friends and family isn't something to be applauded. Too many people wear their burnout as a badge of honor, and it needs to change. I agree. You know, I think that the people that will tell you to, grind 20 hours a day.
Yeah, it'll catch up to you.
Look, I'm with you, but here's the thing. I guarantee you we can find holes in your schedule. You know, I think that one thing that I'm pretty good at is time management, and I feel confident that I can fix your schedule to allow you to get to sleep at night. If you come live with me for 2 days, and I get to see exactly what it is you're doing for the 24 hours in a day, I guarantee you there are holes in your game. Mm-hmm. Just like there's holes in anything. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm telling you with sleep, I think
my money's on you for sleep.
Yeah. And there's not many things I do right, but sleep is something that I'll put my money on me all the time. And so these are 2 ways you can help kind of fix some of those things. And I would love to hear, for those of you that try meditation or try napping, post in the comments. Tell me, hey, I've done meditation for 5 years and it's been a life changer. Or hey, I tried napping, but I suck at it and I gave up. I'll give you some tips, some hacks. So hopefully this helped. I think I just lost Philip for another 30 minutes throughout the day now because he'll be napping.
I'm trying it. Boss approved.
Well,
Boss approved. I'm trying.
Hey, I really like your hat.
What is that?
It's the Parkway hat.
Oh, you like that,
yeah,
right?
I like it.
Nice. I'll get you one.
It looks good.
Nice.
All right, guys. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. This is the Built by Vitality podcast, and we'll catch you next time.